A choice was made, and now the price comes due. We all knew this moment would find us and what we buried with it. The lie we told is about to breathe. "Where's the captain?" Seo Ryeong asked Yoram. The captain had disappeared from their sight. Suddenly, for some reason, he hurriedly ran up to the highest place and jumped somewhere. This wasn't their original plan. "He seems to be moving alone." What about the plan?" "Well, I don't know." Yoram raised his hands and shook his head. Seo Ryeong looked in the direction their captain had disappeared. Seol-Hwi suddenly broke into the square and moved away from them in the blink of an eye. This didn't seem good. What can they do if he got caught like that? "Well, there has to be a reason." Jiok Song approached them from the side. He looked around at the others and spoke in a low tone. "If he is moving differently from the plan, then he found a way to get there faster and safer." "Why did he do that? Without telling us?" Yang Jin, too, came up to where they were. It was a situation they couldn't understand. Moving alone or moving in a group, which one do you think has a higher probability of success? No one answered. It is difficult to infiltrate the enemy's place alone and succeed in assassination even for Seol-Hwi, who was so formidable in martial arts. It's why they moved as a group. Even if he succeeds in the assassination without any plan, his abandoned crew could be in danger, or something else could happen to fail the mission. When everyone was silently thinking, "Well, let's see. Baek Yang-chun is moving to his residence." Everyone turned towards the voice that had broken the silence. It was Imyugi. Unlike them, he was calm and leaning his back on the wall. "What do you mean?" Yang Jin asked, and Imyugi shrugged his shoulders. "No, it's too obvious. We know it's better to move in groups, but do you think the captain doesn't know that? Even so, why is he moving this fast? I can only think of one thing. I think he noticed something." They didn't say it aloud, but everyone agreed. What is required for assassination is strong martial arts, limitless patience, and self-control. And patience and temperance crumble helplessly in the face of time. An assassination mission is difficult to complete as time increases. Well, a human is no book. They can do things differently than what they were intended to. Even if Seol-Hwi managed to enter the residence of Baek Yang-chun and hid until he could assassinate the target, something unexpected could always happen. Baek Yang-chun could change his mind and drink instead of meditating. Maybe he could come from eating or doing something else and the mission would fail. It was reasonable to think that this was the case, but still, then he should have said something. But the captain just suddenly left by himself to find the target. Why didn't he tell us anything before that? Everyone nodded in agreement with Seo Ryeong's words, Imyugi too. "How should I know? But there is something I noticed." The answer was quite simple. "Did the captain run away so quickly that we can't catch up to him?" Seol-Hwi jumped over the gate and entered the courtyard of the four joined buildings. The passing time had slowed with the simulation happening, and he knew that this meant an enemy would come. 3 this time. One by one, the presence of the enemies was revealed in front of him. First, someone was opening the door in the upper right. Next, a little to the front, Seol-Hwi saw someone opening the main gate. And finally, from above, a person standing guard at a post turned their gaze to Seol-Hwi. The simulation pointed out that all 3 were risky. There were 4 illusions of Seol-Hwi created. 3 ran towards the person who opened the door in the upper right corner. The illusion silenced him when he opened the door by covering his mouth and then cracked his neck. After that, the 3 illusions' movements changed. The first jumped onto the rooftop, went up to the roof of another building, and leaped behind the man who opened the main gate. The second leaned against the edge of the wall, waited for the guard to approach, and then ambushed him. And the third ignored them, stepped onto the wall of the building, and ran away. None of the 3 illusions had a commonality. It had to be because of the guard looking down from the watchtower. The fourth, Seol-Hwi looked at the last illusion. Unlike the other 3, this one turned around and walked leisurely. So the guard opening the door in the upper right notices him. After that, the illusion runs into the guard who opened the gate. The simulation ends there. Remove the person who opens the door on the right. After that, go up to the roof. Remove the person who opens the door on the right. After that, take advantage of the situation. Remove the person who opens the door on the right. After that, run to the gate and avoid the sight of the guard on the watchtower. Turn around, walk slowly, then counterattack. I'll bet on this one. Seol-Hwi wasn't worried. He didn't know how to get out of this situation because the last simulation ended unclearly, but he had to try. Rather than a safe way, he thought a dangerous one would bring him a solution. Seol-Hwi chose the fourth option. He did the same movements that he was shown. With his back turned, he began to walk. And as expected, the person who opened the door from above noticed Seol-Hwi. Seol-Hwi ambled and moved a few steps before he heard, "You there, stop! Stop! Who are you?" The guards were yelling at him behind his back. Seol-Hwi was about to answer, but he saw something shocking. The guard in the watchtower was looking elsewhere. At that moment, Seol-Hwi knew. This was his chance. He immediately leaped and went for the neck of the man who was closest to him. Next, before the body even fell down, he covered the mouth of the second man and thrust his sword into the man's chest. The two guards were eliminated in an instant. But was it because of the excitement that arose in the fight? The man from the watchtower was now looking at Seol-Hwi, his face flushed with shock. And the moment he was about to shout, he collapsed. Seol-Hwi's sword pierced straight through his heart. Ah, the time. Seol-Hwi looked at the timer as he was trying to retrieve his sword, 32:31. He thought he had lucked out only to see this. His concerns began to rise once again. Should he go retrieve the sword he threw, or ignore it? No, to reach my full potential. Seol-Hwi moved the corpses into a dark place and pulled his sword out of the third corpse. 25, 24. The estimated time and the remaining time were exactly the same, if I go through this door. The moment he was feeling relieved, time slowed down again. An enemy, someone is coming, a faint shadow could be seen. Two people, and they seemed skilled enough to feel what happened a couple minutes back. The current location was right next to the residence of Baek Yongchun. So maybe these are guards protecting him. This time, too, the simulation responded, and 3 illusions appeared. The first climbed over the gate and jumped down to ambush them. But the enemies were prepared. There were several fights with the two, and one was killed. The illusion didn't fight until the end, and the mission failed. The second waited by the door. This time, as soon as a person came, he attacked and succeeded in taking one down. But he was countered and suppressed by the other guard. Shit. The last illusion ... It was a scene where the ambush happened right away as the door opened. Their resistance was stronger. The two guards were ready to rush at him. After several fights, one died. All illusions ended with a timeout. And do it yourself. This was the only option left. What kind of nonsense? Seol-Hwi felt scared, but he knew what this meant. The simulation didn't find an answer. It means it had nothing to do with Seol-Hwi's martial arts or techniques. This was a failure, so Seol-Hwi needed to decide what to do on his own. What should I do? Time began to flow again. Seol-Hwi headed to the door. Behind it are 2 guards, the strongest enemies he could meet here. How do I handle this? In an instant, he thought of all the martial arts he had, techniques that could surprise the enemy, but all of them were intended to be used in a fight. Suddenly, a person's face appeared in Seol-Hwi's mind, the man he killed a while back. "Hey, what are you doing behind the door?" Instead of a surprise attack, Seol-Hwi began talking. The 2 guards on the other side of the door were surprised. Of course they'd be. Seol-Hwi was using the latent image projection technique to turn his face into the man he killed. "There's an intruder." Lowering the sword he had drawn from its sheath, the taller of the 2 guards answered Seol-Hwi. "You're right, there is one." Seol-Hwi shoved his sword right into the throat of the front man and ran to the one behind. Ook, his opponent, tried to resist, but it was too shocking and sudden. Due to the momentary hesitation, Seol-Hwi used that chance. Hitting the man in the stomach and chin, Seol-Hwi used both hands to break the man's neck. 2 bodies fell to the ground, numbers popped up. Seol-Hwi recovered his sword from the fallen guard and swept the 2 corpses aside. 10-9. He was running out of time. Seol-Hwi crawled under the path and moved in the shadows to reach his destination. Huck! Things popped up in front of him, and there was this unknown, third-person eye. However, he didn't have the energy to rejoice in his success. It was because of the person who entered through the door. Baek Yongchun. He saw a few words come into view. The location of the enemy, the movement of guards, the guarding post shift time, and the number. Time kept flowing. Meanwhile, Baek Yongchun crossed his legs and began to sit. As expected, he was cultivating his energy. More time passed. 212. Just then, an information window appeared in front of him, and things began to make a little more sense. 300 seconds. The reason he had to come to the residence of this man so quickly, because this man had come to his place faster than the information given to Seol-Hwi. In the process, the guards had to be slain, and now it takes 212 seconds for the others to notice the absence of the dead guards. I don't have a moment to waste. I need to attack quickly. Seol-Hwi changed his fighting style. Combat mode, the target's abilities were revealed, making Seol-Hwi doubt his eyes. Status, Baek Yongchun Blue Dragon Sect Leader Health. 9.33 million/9.99 million internal energy. 9.22 million/9.99 million Super Master Combat Power. 12.22 million. The mission notice box has been activated. Now it comes. The mission notice came out when he received a request from Physician Hong. It was now in front of Seol-Hwi again. Mission notice, expand, target. Assassinate Blue Dragon Sect Leader Baek Yongchun. Be careful to not cause any disturbance. When there is noise, the warriors around will come closer. Be careful with martial arts that use large movements. Complete all the tasks within the time limit. As time passes, nearby warriors will start to intervene. Before Baek Yongchun dies, Seol-Hwi and his subordinates have to live. The mission will fail during the fight against Baek Yongchun if there is even one witness. The text which had appeared began to disappear slowly, and Baek Yongchun could be seen along with 10 seconds passing. 202, 201, and then a very familiar window appeared. A great chance. Seol-Hwi discovered a gap in Baek Yongchun. How will you respond? Attack, use martial arts, use the toolbox. Get close to the opponent Seol-Hwi chose. Use martial arts without a second thought. Which martial arts would you like to use? Unified Elimination Demonic Martial Arts Perfect. White Light Body Demonic Martial Arts Intermediate. Flaring Heat Fist Demonic Martial Arts Intermediate. 4 Peak Demonic Martial Arts Wind. Beginner, he chose the first one. The building may collapse, or there'd be a loud noise if he decided anything else. And according to the opponent's reaction, the attack he uses would be effective. So Unified Elimination was the right one. You have selected Unified Elimination Demonic Martial Arts. Seol-Hwi's body moved ahead with a flash of light and advanced toward his opponent. But the reaction of the opponent was faster than expected. As soon as he noticed movement, Baek Yongchun looked at the ceiling, but his response was too late. Quack! Seol-Hwi was lucky. There wasn't enough time for Baek Yongchun to cover his body with internal energy. Seol-Hwi's attack cut from the shoulder to the thigh. Unfortunately, the man realized this, and the attack was shallower than expected. Status, Baek Yongchun Blue Dragon Sect Leader Health. 5 million, down arrow 4.99/9.99 million internal energy. 4 million, down arrow 5.99 million/9.99 million combat power. 7.72 million, down arrow 4.5 million. The combat power has also gone down. Seol-Hwi felt relieved. It was a pity that he couldn't get this done in one hit, but he thought this damage would be worthwhile. Moreover, the face of his opponent was darkening. It could be because of the pain of the hit, but it could also be an internal wound as Baek Yongchun tried to move his internal energy in a hurry when cultivating. A great chance. Seol-Hwi discovered a gap in Baek Yongchun. How will you respond? As expected. On the outside, Baek Yongchun was ready with a defensive form, but his insides must be hurting due to the attack. Attack, use martial arts. Use the toolbox. Get close to the opponent. Seol-Hwi decided on the same thing again. You have selected Unified Elimination Demonic Martial Arts. After Seol-Hwi's attack, Baek Yongchun's body was pushed back. He was stabbed in the shoulder, yet it didn't seem like it affected him. But the internal injury was confirmed from the blood dripping down his mouth. Status, Baek Yongchun Blue Dragon Sect Leader Health. 4.5 million, down arrow 500,000/9.99 million internal energy. 3.8 million, down arrow 200,000/9.99 million combat power. 7.72 million. The attack was successful but wasn't as fatal as Seol-Hwi thought. The combat power hadn't decreased at all. Baek Yongchun, who calmed himself down, finally counterattacked. Kakang. The attacks kept coming in. Seol-Hwi's eyes widened. He felt a strange feeling from his opponent's sword technique. Kakang, dozens of attacks in an instant. If he stepped back, he would die. The attacks continued even though the sword could barely touch him. In a situation where Seol-Hwi would be hurt with one strong move, he felt shocked. This swordsmanship. This was something he had never experienced before. Seeing this splendid and beautiful swordsmanship, Seol-Hwi exclaimed in admiration despite the possibility of his death. It was a sharp and clean movement as it fought with Seol-Hwi's sword. He had never learned or heard of anything like this. How could a sword wielded by a human be this beautiful? It was like watching a sword dance on a sunny day. "Who are you?" Baek Yangchun asked. "Who ordered this?" Seol-Hwi looked at his opponent. The sclera of his eyes was yellow instead of white, a sign that the optic nerve was damaged. It was a symptom of energy running wild due to cultivation being performed wrong. Seol-Hwi didn't have the time or energy to speak, because as he was looking at Baek Yangchun's sword, the timer caught his eye. 109, 108. HMPH, right. You won't talk then. Baek Yangchun clenched his hands around his sword, and Seol-Hwi did the same. Clang! Once again, several attacks came in. But this time, Seol-Hwi started to move. It was because of nervousness. The opponent's attack was too sharp. Time flew, yet he couldn't counterattack. If I could ever learn something like this. In the midst of this, Seol-Hwi felt a thirst for this martial art. Mount Hwa's swordsmanship. At first glance, it looked like a technique stretching out splendidly. But in reality, when facing an opponent, there is nothing that is not sharp in the direction the sword moves. In particular, the techniques which were being linked were too shocking. This was too different from what Seol-Hwi learned or did. Seol-Hwi felt that the lives and thoughts of many people were behind the swordsmanship he was looking at. Damn it, I don't have time. Seol-Hwi checked his status. Seol-Hwi health, 1.08 million/1.2 million. Baek Yangchun health, 4.5 million/9.99 million. It was a tense situation for both himself and the opponent. At this rate, they will only continue to cross swords. 80, 79, cha-cha-chang. Seol-Hwi focused on trying to break the flow. While his opponent was getting stronger in the offensive, Seol-Hwi was dragged into staying on defense. This guy. Who are you? Seol-Hwi didn't respond to Baek Yangchun's words. His eyes remained only on the timer, 56:55. I need to do this right. If he did anything too recklessly, he could suffer fatal injuries. Right, that's the only way. As Seol-Hwi lowered his sword, his opponent's eyes widened. And when Seol-Hwi took a step back, Baek Yangchun moved. He didn't notice the expression on Seol-Hwi's face, which said he had a plan. Warning. Baek Yangchun discovered a gap in Seol-Hwi. How will you respond? It was an opportunity for the opponent, but this was what Seol-Hwi intended. It was what he was aiming for, but there was no guarantee of success. Respond directly, defend, run away. Seol-Hwi chose to respond. Ack! Baek Yangchun swung the sword in front of him. Seol-Hwi tried to avoid it, but still suffered damage. Seol-Hwi health, 680,000, 400,000 down arrow, /1.2 million. One more. Warning. Baek Yangchun discovered a gap in Seol-Hwi. How will you respond? Seol-Hwi showed a gap once again, and for another time, ack! He was stabbed in the shoulder. Seol-Hwi health, 350,000 /1.2 million. One more time. Seol-Hwi didn't give up. He continued to show a gap and would get hurt, but he was aiming for just one thing. The blow by which the opponent's aim is to decapitate him. Xiang, but the opponent kept going for his sides. Seol-Hwi health, 110,000 /1.2 million. One more. Seol-Hwi lowered his sword with bloodshot eyes. 15, 14. As the time kept counting down, he made his opponent attack faster. Warning. Baek Yangchun discovered a gap in Seol-Hwi. How will you respond? And this time, Seol-Hwi chose to respond. At that moment, Seol-Hwi got what he wanted. The sword's direction in front of him was a horizontal slash aiming for his neck. Swish. Seol-Hwi bent his back to dodge underneath the sword, then suddenly straightened his body to place his hand on Baek Yangchun's chest. Baek Yangchun was shocked. But it wasn't just that. Seol-Hwi was getting ready to use the 4-peak demonic martial arts, Wind God, a never-before-used technique. It wasn't the Wind God fist or Wind God sword, but Wind God palm. Gug-gug, the wind blew furiously from Seol-Hwi's hand. Baek Yangchun's chest had a hole blown straight through it. Kwak! His body was pushed to the wall and fell to the ground. Ha! Ha! 6-5. Seol-Hwi was panting, both from exhaustion and the injuries on his body. 3-2. Finally, the timer stopped. Mission success. Things changed in front of him, and he heard familiar voices. Captain, you did it. One after another, the members of the Hidden Truth Corps began to come down from the ceiling. Are you okay? Among them, he responded to Seo Ryeong's question. Well, I could be better. But he smiled briefly as he got up. Let's leave this place now. Emergency, an additional mission was created. It was then Seol-Hwi's head moved to the side. Someone's here. A sound outside the door. Seol-Hwi couldn't understand. Even though he completed the mission within the time limit, he was still discovered. Imyugi glanced around and said, "Captain, this looks like a setup." What? He couldn't believe it. How did this happen? Come out, I already know you're here. A voice calling to them from outside. Seol-Hwi had an ominous feeling but didn't want it to be true. Seol-Hwi walked out, and there stood the man with smiling eyes and dozens of warriors. We meet again. Status, Sang Chenjang III ranked in Supreme Pavilion Body. Normal health, 4.4 million internal energy. 4.5 million super master combat power. 7.2 million.